Our story begins with a lady driving along an open road. She is Grace, our protagonist. We see the calm nature surrounding her. Images of Grace driving are interspersed with images of her watching a recording on her camera while she sits parked. She cancels a phone call from a man named David. On the recording, a man seems to propose to the person who recorded the video, which is probably Grace. As she sits parked, an elder lady suddenly puts her body on Grace's front window. She tells Grace to put on the armor of God so she can stand against the devil's schemes, for God is the only one who can help her. But Grace seems to be more interested in the lady removing herself from Grace's car. The elder lady obeys her wish. Then Grace gets out of her car to offer the lady some food and money. Interestingly, the lady drops the money on the ground as if it had zero value. Yet the food she takes. In exchange, she gives Grace her necklace which has a crucifix. After that, Grace continues to drive with the crucifix in her hand. Eventually, she arrives somewhere to be met by another lady. Grace comes to hug her on a bridge. Soon they enter a house, where we quickly learn that Grace is this lady's younger sister. Grace is impressed with the house she entered. It is indeed quite cozy, being mostly wooden. The older sister is Catherine, whom Grace claims to have missed. She also apologizes that she wasn't there when Catherine needed her. In the short time they talked, Catherine seemed unnerved about something. Left alone in the house, Grace looks at an old picture of her with her mother. Afterward, she looks inside the refrigerator, seeing neatly organized food. She goes upstairs to the room she will be staying at. In the washroom, she sees an unsettling image of a lady lying in the bathtub with a bloody arm. Now we come to understand that something happened in that house. Grace looks out the window to see Catherine chopping lumber with an axe. There is a shaky shadow standing behind Grace as she looks at her sister. We have yet to learn what that shadow is. Shortly after, she looks through a book about abnormal mental health because she is a student studying this subject. Following this, the sisters have dinner together. Grace is talkative, whereas Catherine is reserved. The latter asks Grace how many days she will be staying there. This question makes her wonder if Catherine is sick of her already. It's not that. It's just that Catherine says she doesn't drink much anymore. She also says she is sorry that Grace's engagement is off. That is something Grace isn't sorry about. Supposedly, she was cheated on. Her sister tells her it's okay to be hurt. Grace does not have to hide it. We learn that Catherine's husband betrayed her too. Allowing herself to feel sad was the sole way she could heal. Then, Catherine starts saying nonsensical things, prompting Grace to laugh. Before she leaves, Catherine says she sleeps in a consistent pattern and advises Grace to do the same. In her room, Grace types into her computer, working on an idea for her thesis on the subject of mental health. We see several thesis ideas she has written that she is considering writing about. The one she wrote now concerns her sister's disconnected speech and isolation. She erases it in a few seconds. On her wallpaper, she is with the man from her video recording. For some reason, she still hasn't changed this wallpaper despite being cheated on by him. During her sleep, Grace has a dream about being with the man. He is David, whom she asks if he loves her. After he gives her a positive reply, she asks if he will always love her. This time, David says he won't. This unpleasant response causes Grace to wake up. She gets up to exit her room. She hears talking coming from downstairs. The name Abby is mentioned by her sister. Grace slowly descends the stairs to understand what is going on. We see Catherine sitting at the table, who suddenly turns her head to Grace. She quickly goes to her sister, demanding to know why Grace is spying on her. Catherine is angry because Grace heard her talking to herself. The next scene shows Grace recording herself in the closet. She struggles to start the point of her recording. Soon enough, she begins by saying her sister moved into this house 6 years ago, slightly after her divorce. It is their family's old cabin-like house. Grace has not spoken to Catherine much since she moved there. Then she struggles to make her next point. She can't seem to let the words out, so she turns off the camera. In the morning, Catherine behaves somewhat hasty at the breakfast table. Grace asks her if she wants to talk about last night. Grace heard her talking like a child. With that said, Catherine stops eating. Grace says she heard her mentioning Abby, but Abby isn't there. Now Catherine has to stand up in frustration. She tells her sister she knows the girl isn't there. We learn that Abby is her daughter. Catherine also yells at Grace that she doesn't know what it's like to have her daughter taken from her. The broken lady falls to the floor, and Grace hugs her. She starts talking about how their mom passed away when Grace was 6 years old. Their father would spend a lot of time in this house, leaving his daughters home alone. What scared Grace the most was not existing. Her thinking about her mom not existing was the girl's particular fear at that time. Grace tells her sister that the latter made her believe in spirits. Catherine showed her that nothing does not exist. She also showed Grace how to talk to their mother again. With this calm talk of their past, Grace is able to get her sister to feel better and even laugh. Shortly after, the strange behavior happens again. Catherine says the electricity is listening behind someone she does not specify. She has teary eyes saying this. She turns to look at the wall, which shows us Catherine's blurry vision. All of this ends with her getting up to go feed the chicken. We see Grace saddened by what she had to experience. She enters another room to see the mess in there. In that room's washroom, she finds her sister's pills. Soon, she hides due to Catherine entering. She calls out to Abby, asking the non-existent girl if she looked through her pills. Hearing this makes Grace cover her mouth out of shock. Later, Grace records herself in the closet again. Unlike earlier, this time she can say that her sister is talking like a child. we learn that her mom was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia while pregnant with Grace. As she talks, we see the lady lying lifeless in the bathtub again. She is Grace's mother. The poor girl blames herself for her mother's passing. The last thing she says in her recording is that she found antipsychotic medication in Catherine's washroom. This scares her. Then her sister calls out to her right outside Grace's room. This prompts her to quickly leave the closet to meet Catherine entering the room. Interestingly, she enters with a bowl of soup that rests on an Ouija board. In the next scene, the sisters sit on a bed, using that item. Catherine asks if there are any spirits who wish to talk to them. One of the sisters likely moves the planchette to the word yes. Grace asks the spirit its name and the planchette starts spelling the name Penny. This causes Catherine to take her hands off it, followed by her telling Grace to stop moving it. The happening sparks a monologue from Catherine. She says she started getting paranoid after she birthed Abby. Voices told her that her husband, Jerry, would hurt their... That is how their mother ended. Their dad said she started to see a shadow inside the house. This explains the shadow that stood behind Grace at the window earlier in the movie. Catherine had mild schizophrenia since Abby was born. Jerry considered her dangerous, yet she would never hurt Abby. Being alone helps her with her condition. At that moment, she says something nonsensical again. Hearing it troubles Grace. Once she asks Catherine who Penny is, they hear something inside the closet. Penny is someone Catherine doesn't want to talk about. Despite not wanting to, she says Penny is how she talks to Abby. She supposedly becomes this other person. In that form, she can see her daughter. Furthermore, Catherine says she begged Jerry to bring Abby to this house. It is unfortunate that he never did. Catherine tells her sister all of this because she doesn't want it to happen to her. Before she leaves, Grace says she loves her. At another time, Grace takes a pregnancy test and is very upset with the result. She says she doesn't want a baby. Then she uses the Ouija board alone. She asks if she should have the baby. Then, the planchette moves over the word no. Asking if she will regret such a decision makes the pointer move to yes. She asks a third question but changes her mind about seeing the answer. She wanted to know what the gender will be of her future child. We don't know if she moved the planchette herself or if it moved for her. Following this, Grace dreams again. She enters the washroom to see David cheating on her. The scene transforms to her occupying the woods at night. A little girl runs to Catherine. After the girl hides inside her dress, Catherine whispers that Grace is better off alone. After that, Grace wakes up. She goes downstairs to find another mess is now in the living room. Outside, she goes to Catherine. Her sister informs her that it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Somehow Grace managed to sleep about half the day away. She goes back inside with a pile of chopped wood. She takes out some food from the refrigerator to put it in the oven, as per her sister's request. When it's ready, the siblings sit to have dinner. Instead of Grace saying grace, Catherine does. Grace is curious to know if her sister sees things often, in addition to hearing voices constantly. However, Catherine doesn't seem to want to answer that, so she asks Grace how long she was engaged to David. It was for a few months. Soon Grace returns to her interrogation by asking if Catherine's paranoia started with her dreams. Yet her sister keeps dodging her question. This time she crudely asks Grace if she talked to the lady whom her fiancé was cheating on her with, since Grace walked in on them. The younger sister gets upset hearing that and says she doesn't want to talk about it. Catherine asked that question to demonstrate a point, that she also doesn't want to talk about what Grace is asking her. In about a minute, Grace says she is pregnant, but Catherine talks about something else, ignoring her sister's heavy statement. In the closet again, Grace films herself. She says her sister thinks being alone is the best solution to her problem. Grace also says it must have been easier to deal with schizophrenia when people thought it was caused by demonic possession. With that idea, there is hope for getting better or something to blame. A demon could be exorcised or blamed for its evil doings. Yet schizophrenia getting labeled as a disease blames no one except the schizophrenic's parents. Grace says she knows the sister she knew is gone. She turns off the camera, only to turn it back on in a panicky state of mind. She talks about having taken a pregnancy test last night. She asked the Ouija board some questions and answered them herself by pushing the planchette. Then she shares with her audience that she asked the question concerning the gender of her future baby. Grace holds up the Ouija board, saying she didn't do what we now observe to be there. All the letters that spell girl are circled. After that, she exits her room to hear Catherine acting like she's playing with Abby downstairs. Going down there to check was probably a mistake. Her sister runs up to her, mistaking Grace for Abby. She refers to herself as mommy while saying she is upset. This prompts Grace to run upstairs, where she lies in bed to have another dream. In that dream, she exits her room to see someone using the Ouija board. That person is none other than the elder lady who gave Grace her crucifix necklace. We hear many whispers surrounding her, which she talks back to. The lady seems scared, asking for an unspecified female to become better along with herself. Once Grace greets her, the elder lady gets more scared. She stands to say she did nothing wrong. Grace telling her it's okay makes the lady start approaching her. She gives Grace her necklace, telling her to put on the full armor of God. She also says that a certain female wants to hurt Grace. Therefore, she takes Grace to the Ouija board, perhaps intending to show her who she means. But instead of that happening, Catherine appears beside Grace to whisper the same phrase she whispered in the previous dream, that Grace is better off alone. For the second time, our heroine wakes up after hearing those unsettling words. She goes downstairs to search for something that she can't seem to find. Going outside, Grace sees her sister chopping lumber again. She apologizes for interrupting her last night. Catherine asks to be left alone in the late hours because it's embarrassing to her for Grace to see her behaving that way. Again, Grace learns she woke up at the same time as yesterday. She asks her sister if she used the Ouija board, something Catherine denies to have touched. We come to understand that is the item she was searching for, so she goes back inside with some chopped wood to keep repeating yesterday's pattern. The clock shows her the same time. At least the food she puts in the oven is different. During dinner, Grace says she couldn't find the Ouija board. She also informs her sister of what she asked the board and that she found the letters to the word girl circled by a crayon. To tell Grace it wasn't her who did that, Catherine says she doesn't have crayons. Grace wants to prove what she mentioned by getting up to retrieve the camera she says she recorded it on. Catherine follows her, worrying that Grace is there recording. In Grace's room, her sister demands to know if Grace was recording her. She even asks if Jerry sent her there. Nervous, Grace says she didn't know what was going on until Catherine told her. She promises to delete her recordings. Then she enters the closet, where she starts going mad due to not finding the Ouija board there. She thinks it could be in the hallway closet, for she heard a sound coming from within. So Catherine takes her to that closet to open it. However, there are only weapons there. When Grace sleeps, her closet door opens. She has a dream of coming outside to see David there. The man asks her if she wants to meet their daughter. They go inside a house for Grace to see David on top of an unconscious Grace in bed. Afterward, he approaches the main Grace to talk in a childish voice. He asks her if she wants to meet their daughter before Grace takes her life. She enters another room to see the unpleasant cheating again. In addition to that, Catherine lies in a bathtub full of water. For the third time, she tells Grace that she is better off alone. Once she wakes up, there is a little girl inside the closet who greets her. On the next day, Grace learns she can't wake up earlier than 4 in the afternoon. She meets Catherine outside to say she thinks she has cabin fever. In the following scene, Grace engages in target practice by using a rifle with a scope. She looks around through that scope until she sees a window of their house. A young girl is there. She has to make sure she wasn't hallucinating by looking a second time. But as we would expect, the girl is no longer there. After dinner, the sisters sit by the fireplace to play a game from their childhood. Grace feels like a kid again. Despite feeling momentarily good, she sours the mood by telling Catherine she is hearing things. Her sister replies that the house creaks sometimes. Grace wonders if she is going to be a good mom. She is worried about becoming one due to what happened to their mother. It could happen to her too. Catherine says an odd thing again, that their mom sometimes writes her letters. Yet it's nothing compared to the nonsense she says next. She has a schizophrenic moment, talking about atoms plus genomes always being there, a topic completely unrelated to their mom. Then she gets upset, saying she is a good mother. She follows those words by asking Grace what is wrong with her. Catherine holds her down on the couch to say she is a good mother. Grace is forced to agree out of fear. In her room, she messages David to come there to help her. That's a man we didn't expect her to contact. However, her situation calls for it. After messaging him, she goes to the hallway closet to grab a gun. She hides it in a drawer in her room. Subsequently, she sits to tell herself she is fine, along with her not hearing things. In the living room, we see a shadow standing beside Catherine. When Grace lies in bed, that little girl shows up close to her to greet her. This prompts Grace to repeat that she is fine, regardless of her saying this. She gets up to follow the girl like she believes her to be real. She can't find her, so she calls out to the girl. She even calls her Abby. Unsuccessful in what could perhaps be a wild goose chase, Grace goes back to bed to have another dream. She lies in bed, trying to push out her baby. David is there to watch her. The scene changes to show the young girl submerged in a bathtub. Disturbingly, Catherine and Grace are there to hold her down until Soon the face of the elder lady appears in a closet to say mommy is not feeling well. The last sequence of the dream shows Grace waking up restrained in bed. She keeps hearing a woman's voice saying how she didn't do anything wrong. Grace repeats those words too, before she wakes up in fear. She puts on the necklace with the crucifix, hoping it will protect her. Going downstairs, Grace learns today is worse than the previous days, for it is 6 o'clock in the evening. She puts the dinner on without having her sister tell her to do it. Then she goes outside to chop lumber instead of Catherine doing it. But she struggles with it. Grace sees the little girl at the window again. Inside the house, Catherine comes to her to say she wants Grace to leave now. The lady is more intimidating than ever as she holds an axe. Grace is making her condition worse for her. However, Grace has a condition of her own. She says she sees a girl in her dreams. The problem is that she still sees her outside of the dream world. She thinks it could be her daughter. She also shares her appalling nightmare of how they both bathtub. Catherine feels pity upon hearing that. Later, she tells her younger sister that what she is going through is how it started with her as well. She gives her some pills to deal with her developing disorder. Furthermore, she delivers the upsetting news that once Grace gives birth, her baby will be taken from her. Hearing this, Grace sits with a stupefied expression. After that, she gets into an empty bathtub. Putting one hand on her stomach, she pleads to be forgiven prior to saying a prayer. In the midst of it, she hears a girl asking her what she's doing. Grace sees her, telling the girl she's not real. Disagreeing with her, the girl says she is real. It's Penny who isn't. Since she wants to play hide and seek, Grace closes her eyes to start counting. After she counts, the search begins. She enters her closet, where she tells herself this is not real. She was there several times, yet this is the first time she locates an opening in the wall. Crawling through it, she sees the mysterious girl run. Then Grace enters an area that looks like it could be the basement. As she descends, the girl grabs her leg, which makes Grace fall. She loses consciousness as a result. At a different time, Grace wakes up. She looks under the bed, causing the girl to come out. They sit on the bed together to talk. We still don't know if she is Grace's hallucination or if she's real. She says her name is Abby. Grace can't help but cry after hearing this. She knows this is Catherine's daughter. She is either hallucinating or truly seeing. After talking for a little longer, Abby gets bored, so she wants to play her favorite game. Grace wants to play it too, except she wants them to hide from Abby's mom. The girl says she's not allowed to go outside, but Grace takes her anyway. When they get to a respectable distance, they hear Catherine yelling out to Abby. We see they are on the bridge now. While they run on it, Catherine appears to fire her rifle, since she is yelling for Abby to come back. This proves the girl's existence. She isn't just Grace's delusion. Shortly after, a car arrives and from it exits David. The madwoman fires at him, though she misses. On her second attempt, she gets him in the shoulder. Afterward, Catherine strikes her sister with the butt of the rifle to knock her out. She gets dragged into the shed. At the house, Catherine approaches her daughter in the basement. She somehow confuses the girl for Jerry, telling her insane things. Abby tells her to stop because she is scared. We see the shadow standing beside them. Then, Catherine starts telling her daughter how she would never hurt her. We learn she is the one who took the Ouija board. However, Penny is the one who circled the letters on it. We know that Penny is Catherine's other personality. Abby also took her aunt's camera. In the shed, Grace awakens with David beside her. Additionally, there is a skeleton there too. Grace takes its wallet to discover the horrifying truth that it is a long time deceased Jerry. She yells to be released. In the meantime, Catherine looks at what her sister recorded. On the camera, Grace says she went to a psychiatric hospital when her mother passed away. This eventually led to the failing health of her father. She never thought she would be watching the deterioration of her sister's mind. In the process of watching this, Catherine suffers. After that, Abby goes to Grace in the shed. She wants to know why her mom hit her. Grace reveals Abby's mom is sick and needs their help. The girl says her mom told her that people from outside want to hurt them, but Grace denies wanting to do any such thing and she cries. Her niece helps her by freeing her. Meanwhile, we don't know what happened to David, if the man is even alive. Grace tries running away with Abby, yet Catherine makes this endeavor difficult. She shows up behind them, with her rifle pointed at Grace. Her sane sister tells her that she can't keep locking her daughter away. She wants Catherine to give Abby a chance at a normal life, like she gave to Grace. Furthermore, she brings Jerry's demise to Catherine's attention. Grace knows what she did to him. As the two sisters argue, Grace gets suddenly shot. This shot came from Abby. This is the sad note where our story abruptly ends on. Catherine will likely continue to keep her daughter locked away from the outside. What makes the situation even sadder is that soon enough, Catherine's mind will diminish to the point where she won't be able to take care of Abby. It's hard to imagine how the poor girl will make it to adulthood.